Here's a man that's watching all that money and has made it his mantra. He's been with us a number of times before, the congressman from the west side of the state, Justin Amash, on the other end of our line this morning. How are you?
Hey, Frank. Thanks for having me on.
Good of you to join us. I heard the news yesterday, just before we left the air, that you had decided you're not going to run for Carl Levin's Senate seat, and so we've got to call Congressman Amash and get his take on this, find out what happened here, and also on what's going on in Washington.
Well, I gave it thoughtful consideration. I spent a lot of time deliberating. I talked to family and friends. I've really reflected on the last 3 years I've been here in Congress, almost 3 years, and we've done a lot. We've made huge advances on the Republican side in terms of shifting the debate. There's a new generation of Republicans, and I feel like I'm comfortably within that generation, taking the lead amongst those people. And look, we've got the chance to make a big difference here in the House, and I want to keep doing that.
Do you think the party is changing right now?
Yes, I do. And when you look at the last couple months, particularly with the NSA issue, the Syria issue, and a number of other issues, including defunding Obamacare, there's a big shift within the party, and it's moving in a more libertarian direction. And I feel really comfortable doing what I'm doing, and feel like I can make a big difference here, and want to continue to do that.
And yet, some of the party regulars are stiff-arming you and others that you'd include in what you just described as this new breed of Republicans. John Boehner tried to punish you for not voting according to what the party wanted. You and John McCain have had your famous run-in on Twitter. So, I mean, the battle's still ongoing.
Yeah, the battle's ongoing, and that's why I'm glad to be here. Look, the party's changing. Some of the leaders who are in charge, they're nice guys. I like John Boehner a lot. I like other members of our leadership team personally, but they don't always reflect the views of grassroots Republicans, and they certainly aren't reaching out to moderates and independents in the right way either. So I think you have a new group of Republicans here who are more libertarian, who are more principled, but also better able to reach out to moderates and independents and grow the party.
Well, you know, what's interesting is you say that, and yet people try to paint you and others who are from the Tea Party movement, who are part of that Tea Party movement generation. They try to paint you as the extremists who aren't in touch with those independents and moderates.
Yeah, I think that's just their sort of defense mechanism to lash out and say we're the extremists. When you look at the issues we're representing, we're right in the mainstream of what people at home are talking about. When I go to my town halls, I have Republicans and Democrats there. People walk away consistently saying, this is a guy who's making sense, he's speaking common sense. And when you look at Congress, too, the people who have the best relationships with the Democrats are actually the people who were more recently elected, and the people sometimes described as Tea Party or Libertarian representatives have the best relationships with the Democrats, and we're doing a lot of good work, including on NSA, for example.
Well, what does John Boehner say when you bring this up to him?
Well, I don't talk about my private conversations with Speaker Boehner, but he's just from a different generation, and while I like him personally, I like him very much personally. Actually, I've had a lot of good conversations with him. A
different age generation or political generation?
Political generation. It's not just age. Age is maybe part of it, but not primarily. It's mostly a political generation. A lot of the members who are in leadership on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers were elected to Congress sometimes decades ago. And there's just a different way of thinking about how Congress should work. They view Congress as a place where you go and you sit down and you make deals together. And those deals don't always benefit the American people, but they get the job done in terms of not getting themselves into trouble. So they just cut these small deals and move from day to day and keep the status quo going. And there's others of us who have been more recently elected who see the bigger problems, and we want to come to Congress and make a big difference. We want to go and work out real negotiations with our counterparts on the other side of the aisle.
All right, there's a whole lot more to talk about what's going on in Washington with Obamacare, with the debt ceiling, with Justin Amash. You know what the routine is, though, Congressman, when we reach the fives here, right?
Okay.
We've got to take care of traffic and weather. We do that with Mark Mitchell in Right Now Traffic. Congressman Justin Amash with us. He has nixed a Senate run for next year, saying he wants to continue to be a part of this new generation of Republicans who is serving in Washington in the House right now. And that means a battle over Obamacare. The president has already said any budget bill that cuts out funding for the Affordable Care Act, and he's going to veto it. So how does this situation resolve itself?
Well, it sounds like the president doesn't want to compromise, and it's kind of funny that the president and Democrats are always blasting Republicans for not wanting to compromise. And here you have the president saying, "Oh, I'm not willing to negotiate on these major points." He's not willing to negotiate on legislation that was passed with just Democratic support and no Republican support, which was about as partisan as you can get. He's not willing to negotiate on the debt ceiling. So when you're talking about who's obstructing the workings of government, it's President Obama and some of the Democrats who are going along with him. So, look, let's compromise, let's negotiate. We're going to work on legislation here in the House that defunds Obamacare, that sends the Democrats in the Senate a bill to fund government except for Obamacare, and let's see what they send us back. And are they willing to compromise? Are they willing to negotiate?
Would you be willing to go so far, though, as to shut down the government over this?
Well, when you're talking about shutting down the government, both parties have to come to an agreement. So at the end of the day, no one party is going to shut down the government. If there's a government shutdown, it's going to be because the two parties couldn't come to an agreement, and it's just as much on the Democrats as it would be on the Republicans.
Yeah, but you're going to get blamed for it. You know that.
At the end of the day, we've got to do what's right. We've got to fight for the American people, and the biggest concern is a long-run shutdown of the government. If you don't get our budget back under control, if you don't get things like Obamacare reformed, repealed, you're going to have a huge mess down the road, and you're going to have a fiscal crisis that's going to shut down the government permanently.
When you hear the president, though, say what he said the other day, that the candidate who talked about repealing Obamacare in the last election lost, meaning Mitt Romney, and he won, running on Obamacare and the passage of it and being proud of it, and that should be the end of the issue. How do you respond to that?
Well, there are a lot of dynamics to a presidential election, and at the end of the day, I think the president hardly ran on Obamacare. There was a long period of time where he'd barely talk about it because it's so unpopular. And when I go back to my district, I hear it from Republicans and Democrats. There are major problems with this legislation. It's hurting small businesses. It's hurting individuals because people are getting kicked off of their health care and premiums are going way up.
Finally, the debt ceiling. The president would like to see it raised again, and he's making a point of telling people raising the debt ceiling, and I'm quoting now, which has been done over 100 times, does not increase our debt. He said the average person thinks raising the debt ceiling must mean that we're raising up our debt. Comment.
Well, it allows for more borrowing. So if you raise the debt ceiling, it's because you want to borrow more. So the two are going hand in hand, really. At the end of the day, if you want to borrow more money, then let's cut spending from government. Let's find ways to get the government under control here, and there are a lot of methods we can work together on. But the idea that we're just going to raise the debt ceiling, which will allow more borrowing, allow you to essentially raise your credit card limit once again, or basically take out a new credit card to pay other credit cards, that's got to stop. You've got to get your budget under control, and the president doesn't seem to want to do that.
Well, I think we could probably do without a couple of those amphibian crossings in Vermont and turtle crossings in Florida, and as much as I hate to admit it, even a driving simulator at the National Corvette Museum, we could do without that.
That's right.
I appreciate the time, Congressman. Thanks for being with us, as always.
Thanks, Frank.
Congressman Justin Amash here on the Frank Beckmann Show.